What if the glittering gown, the pumpkin carriage, and the sparkling glass slipper were never meant to enchant you, but to distract you? What if the story you loved as a child, the tale of kindness rewarded and cruelty punished, has always been hiding something far darker beneath its shimmering surface? Today, prepare to meet a Cinderella you were never shown. A girl shaped not by magic, but by trauma, desperation, and a past soaked in shadows. Prepare to step beyond the sanitized versions and into the world of the oldest Cinderella tales, a place where violence, superstition, grief, and human desperation weave a story far more haunting than the one you remember. Because long before Disney softened her edges, long before ballrooms and blue dresses became synonymous with her name, Cinderella walked through ashes, blood, and betrayal. She survived a home that had become a battlefield, a family steeped in jealousy, and a world that viewed her as disposable. And at the end of this journey, the true old Cinderella tale, in all its brutal honesty, will be revealed. Beneath the ashes, a childhood marked by suffering. Cinderella's story begins not with enchantment, but with mourning. In the oldest European versions, her mother's death is not merely a sad event, but a spiritual rupture, a moment that fractures the safety of childhood and opens the door to the horrors that follow. Her mother, often portrayed as gentle and wise, becomes a symbol of lost protection, and in some versions a supernatural presence who lingers, watching helplessly as her daughter is slowly stripped of her dignity. When the stepmother enters, the household transforms into a place of silent war. Her cruelty is not sudden but calculating. She watches Cinderella wash the floors, sleep in the cinders, and lose every piece of identity she once owned. In these older versions, Cinderella isn't simply a servant, she is ritualistically degraded. Her clothes are taken, her face is smeared with soot. She is fed scraps like an animal, a living reminder that power, especially feminine power, is easily crushed when society offers no protection. Her father, in some early tales, does not die. He remains alive yet disturbingly passive, a man who either cannot or will not defend his daughter. His silence becomes its own kind of violence, teaching Cinderella that the world will not save her, not even those sworn to love her. This version of Cinderella's childhood is not a moral fable. It is the psychological portrait of a young girl learning that kindness does not shield one from cruelty, and that innocence is not a currency the world accepts. The stepmother, a creature born from desperation, not evil. In modern retellings, the stepmother is painted as a one-dimensional villain, but in older folklore, her darkness is more insidious, rooted in survival and fear. She lives in a world where women have power only through their daughters, their beauty, their marriages, their ability to secure social protection. Cinderella threatens this fragile system merely by existing. Her stepmother's hatred thus becomes a distorted form of self-preservation. Every chore, every insult, every humiliation is a way to tilt the scale toward her own daughters, to ensure they, not the strange, ethereal girl with the mournful eyes, will attract a wealthy husband. Cinderella becomes a rival in a game she never agreed to play. In this way, the stepmother symbolizes something more disturbing, the way oppressive societies force women to harm each other. Her cruelty is the consequence of a world that gives her no other means of control. The stepsisters. Beneath the silks, desperation boils. The stepsisters in early versions are not the clumsy, comedic figures modern audiences know. They are tragic, vicious, and terrified. Like their mother, they understand the rules of their world, marry well or risk losing everything. Their jealousy of Cinderella is not petty, it is survival-driven. Her beauty threatens their only currency. This desperation reaches its horrific climax in the Grimm brothers' telling. When the prince begins his search, the stepsisters do something almost unthinkable. To fit the tiny slipper, one slices off her toes, the other her heel. Blood fills the shoe, staining the symbol of feminine perfection with the price of societal expectations. These moments are not simply grotesque. They are metaphors for the ways women have been pressured to mutilate themselves, physically or psychologically, to fit into impossible standards. The stepsisters are not merely villains. They are victims of a world that demanded they reshape themselves to be worthy. The magic, a midnight illusion, not salvation. The fairy godmother of modern versions is, in older tales, not always a benevolent figure. Sometimes she is a witch. Sometimes she is the ghost of Cinderella's mother, returning from beyond the grave through a tree planted on her tomb. This tree, watered by Cinderella's tears, becomes a supernatural conduit, a haunting reminder that Cinderella's only protector is dead, yet still trying to help her. This magic is not whimsical, it is eerie, born from grief rather than joy. The dresses Cinderella receives shimmer not with wonder, but with the melancholy glow of lost love. They are gifts stitched from memory, from longing, from the ashes of what once was. And the magic has rules. It ends at midnight, a symbol of impermanence, a reminder that joy is fleeting, that transformation is temporary, that a single misstep can return her to suffering. Cinderella does not control this magic. It controls her. She is a visitor in her own dream, a ghost inhabiting a version of herself that the world will accept only until the clock strikes 12. The pumpkin, the mice, and the glass slipper are not charming. They are fragile, absurd, and precariously balanced, just like the life Cinderella longs for but cannot hold. The prince, a symbol of power, not romance. In the old tales, the prince is not a savior, he is an observer. He sees Cinderella at the ball, but he does not recognize her as the girl covered in ashes at home. The slipper test becomes necessary, not because it is romantic, but because he has failed to notice who she truly is. His attraction is superficial, tied to a beautiful dress and an air of mystery. He does not question why this girl disappears at midnight, or why she refuses to reveal her name. His search for the slipper's owner becomes a metaphor for his blindness, his inability to see beyond wealth, beauty, and spectacle. In some ancient versions, the prince is even darker. He tries to trap Cinderella at the ball by pouring pitch on the stairs, nearly imprisoning her. His pursuit is obsessive, not loving. He represents a world that values women not for their resilience or their suffering, but for how well they fit into a delicate, predetermined mold, quite literally, a shoe. The brutal ending, justice carved in blood. If Cinderella's beginning is sorrowful, her ending in the early tales is violent. As she walks down the aisle beside her prince, birds descend upon the stepsisters and peck out their eyes. They are left blind, stumbling behind Cinderella as living symbols of the consequences of cruelty. This punishment is not mercy. It is brutal, medieval justice. The world of old fairy tales does not believe in redemption, only retribution. The stepsisters' suffering becomes a spectacle, a warning that in a world built on competition and fear, those who claw their way upward by harming others will eventually fall. Why these dark versions still matter? These older Cinderella tales endure, not because they are romantic, but because they confront uncomfortable truths. Innocence is not protection. Kindness does not shield you from cruelty. Beauty is both a weapon and a curse. Society forces women to compete, mutilate, and betray, and transformation is fragile, conditional, and costly. Cinderella's journey is not a fantasy. It is a mirror, reflecting the ancient fears, pressures, and traumas that shaped countless lives. And now, the real story of Cinderella. A young girl loses her mother far too early, long before she has learned how to make sense of grief or how to hold a household together without the soft voice that once guided her. Her mother's final request is simple: be good and pious, and the heavens will watch over you. Those words root themselves inside the girl's heart. At the grave, where fresh earth still mounds over the coffin, she plants a slender hazel branch. Each day she visits, kneeling in the quiet hush of the cemetery, watering the branch not with a bucket or a can, but with her own tears. Her sorrow becomes nourishment. Her longing becomes sunlight. Slowly, impossibly, the branch takes hold and grows into a tree, a hazel with leaves that shimmer as though they remember who planted them. And from its branches a white bird descends, not quite tame, not quite wild, but attentive. It becomes the keeper of her wishes, the lone witness to her grief. Life shifts when her father returns from a journey with a new wife and 2 daughters. Their smiles never reach their eyes. Behind closed doors, they whisper calculations, as though deciding what to claim. Soon, Cinderella's dresses, trinkets, and belongings are taken, repurposed, or simply seized. She is ordered to sleep by the hearth, where soot settles over her like a second skin. Her days become an endless chain of chores, scrubbing, polishing, fetching, as the stepsisters lounge in silks and complain of imagined discomforts. The girl who once tended a grave now tends an entire household that refuses to see her humanity. Then word arrives: the prince will hold a grand festival lasting 3 nights, inviting every maiden in the land. The stepsisters squeal and preen, demanding Cinderella prepare them. She braids their hair, fastens their gowns, and quietly swallows her yearning. But afterward, she runs to the hazel tree, weeping beneath its branches. The white bird descends, rustles its wings, and drops a gown of unparalleled beauty, shimmering, exquisite, nothing like the gaudy fabrics inside her stepmother's chambers. Slippers of fine gold accompany it. Thus begins the first night. At the festival, the prince notices her instantly. She dances with him until the hour grows late, then slips away before anyone can follow. The second night unfolds the same: another gown, another escape. By the third night, the prince, determined to discover who she is, orders pitch poured upon the palace steps so she cannot flee. Yet flee she does, swift as a startled deer, though one golden slipper remains trapped in the sticky tar. The next day, the prince begins his search. The stepsisters, desperate, slice away pieces of their own feet to force the slipper on, each time fooling the prince, until the ever-watchful birds cry from the hazel tree, warning him of the blood dripping into their shoes. At last, he finds Cinderella. The slipper slides on as though molded for her alone. At the wedding, the birds return. They sweep down with the cold precision of justice, pecking out the stepsisters' eyes, one at the church door, the other as the couple departs, leaving them blind, doomed to wander the world they once scorned. There is no fairy godmother, no pumpkin carriage, no sparkling blue dress. Only grief transformed into magic and justice delivered without mercy.